Jenny, it's time to do another new moon video.
Sure is.
It sure is. So this month we're going to be talking about the Taurus new moon. And just to remind anybody that's new, anybody that doesn't understand how this process works, you want to think about the cycles of the moon. Everything starts at the new moon. This is the beginning point. You can correlate the moon phases, the moon cycle with the plant cycle. And in thinking about it that way, this is the time you plant a seed. So first we have the new moon, and then a week after the new moon, what comes next, Jenny?
We have the first quarter square, a time for action. And then another week after that, we have the full moon.
And the full moon, if you think about those, again, relating it to the plant cycle, the first quarter is when you've got that's, I guess that plant, that seed that you planted is cramming its way up through the dirt, reaching for the sun. And in our own lives at the first quarter moon, we, like you said, we take action. And then what is, if you are going to correlate it to the plant cycle, what's the full moon going to give us? And what do we do there?
It's the flowering phase. So it's really, I mean, I always just think about the beautiful full moon in the sky, and it's that flower. And that's when you're going to see the fruits of your labors at the first half of the cycle. And then it's also cueing you that now we're going to be on the waning half.
Right.
So what happens there?
So yeah, that first half, the moon's getting a little bit bigger every day. The plant's growing a little bit stronger every day. And then we've got that flowering phase, the full moon, and then things start breaking down a little bit.
Yeah.
A week after the full moon, we'll come to the third quarter moon. And actually it's the last quarter moon.
Yeah.
And at that point, there's something to be released in order to prepare for the next new moon a week later.
Yeah. So that's like the fruit. So you have the flower at the full moon, and then there has to be flower sex so that you can have the fruit, because then the fruit starts to swell and grow, and by the last quarter you're harvesting that fruit. And that's what you're going to see. And then the very last section is the dying on the vine and things going back into compost to create nutrients for the next cycle. So very, very important part of it.
Yeah. So here we are now with the new moon. So we're going to plant a seed, and this new moon is in Taurus. Let's open up the chart, Jenny.
All right, let's grab that. And here we go. And this is, of course, this is Eastern Daylight Times, because we live on the East Coast. It's not because we don't care about everybody else in the world. It's just where we happen to live. So that's what you're seeing here. And there's that new moon right next to the sun at 21 degrees of Taurus.
Yeah.
What do you notice right off the bat, Laurie?
Well, the first thing that jumps out to me is that right before the moon reached the sun, it went past Uranus. Now, one thing I want to just, one of the things that I think is confusing for people when they're first learning astrology is the direction that the planets are moving. When you look at a chart, and this chart is clearly, it's at almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At daybreak that day, the sun came up over the horizon over here, and the planets in the course of the day, because of the spinning of the earth on its axis, the planets are moving in a clockwise manner. However, in reality, as the planets are moving around the zodiac, they are moving in counterclockwise position. So the moon actually is reaching for the sun in this direction. So right before the new moon, it passed over Uranus. I think I just wanted to explain that. So yeah, that's the first thing I notice is, okay, how much, it's not a conjunction. This new moon is not conjunct Uranus, but the moon is still full of the energy of Uranus when it meets the sun.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well, it's interesting you're saying that, because like what I want to get at is, like, first off, we're talking about Taurus here, and Taurus is all about stability and reliability, and it's very steadfast, and it doesn't want to change. It wants to keep things as they are, and it's really expressing this. I keep thinking about, it's expressing how nature kind of works, where there's this interconnected web, and it's very reliable in a certain way, and it's been very steadfast for a long time. And as soon as you start talking about Uranus and Taurus, what we're seeing is just a disruption to this. So it's a disruption to some of the webs in nature. This is a disruption to food for humans too, like some of the supply chain issues and things like that that we're have seen and will see. So, so having Uranus and Taurus is right off the bat is this shakeup of this thing that doesn't want to be shaken up. And it's just the reality of our times, and I keep interpreting a lot as like climate change, and that just trying to wake up to some of these the necessary stability of these systems that we all rely on. So
Yeah, and Uranus is such a slow moving planet. It's been in there for quite a while. Off the top of my head, I should be able to tell you exactly when it entered, but my brain isn't going to quite go there right now. But it's been a couple of years that Uranus has been in Taurus, and it'll be there for quite a while still. But yeah, that waking up to the changes that are happening to these very set structures. Another one, along with climate change, that I think about with Uranus and Taurus is cryptocurrency, because Taurus is very much also about money and that system. And it is in upheaval along with the cult, with so many other things that we always thought of as being very stable, like the weather, the planet, money, governments, all these things. So yeah, so this new moon holds that within it.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because a Taurus new moon is like, we want to talk about reliability and stability, and this great time to plant a stake in the ground regarding those sorts of topics. Like, how do you get really grounded? How do you secure yourself in the practical sense, hence the reference to money. But the reality is we're in 2021, and we're in the throes of this Uranus and Taurus squaring Saturn in Aquarius. That's the big theme of the year that we've peppered throughout all of our conversations. And so no matter how much we want this to be like a nice, stable starting point, it's very, very fleeting. I feel this Taurus new moon, but it is saying, hey, do the things you need to do to get comfort, to secure yourself in this sort of May 11th time frame. Like, get your feet on the ground.
Right.
Because there's a lot more movement and tumultuousness and communications flying around that we're seeing. So
do what you can. Plant a seed for your own stability around love, around money, around your own little corner of the world. It's a great new moon to actually plant your garden, plant a tree, plant something. It's a great new moon to do some actual planting.
One of the highest manifestations I feel of Taurus is this idea of reverence. So it's doing something with reverence, bringing your full attention to the planting or the seeds. Or Laurie, I was thinking about, I know how you like to make those fermented products. I think about you bringing your full attention to what you're doing in that process of making this food. So it's really about bringing that sense of tranquility and reverence. And at a fundamental level, it's the seeking of peace, like finding a moment of peace is kind of what I think this new moon is here to tell us about and give us an opportunity to find that.
Beautiful. So I guess that pretty well covers Taurus. Taurus is about building and stabilizing. So that's what we're planting a seed for.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just to throw in one or two of the like maybe less pleasant manifestations. It is incredibly stubborn above all other signs. This is the sign that digs its heels in, and it does not want to move and change. So there's a little bit of that. Some struggles, people with a lot of Taurus, it may be like complacency or not wanting to move things forwards.
And materialism as well.
Oh, yeah. So you can also, sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, I'm interrupting as well. That's what we do. One of the things I remember many years ago reading about Taurus, and this is not about Taurus people, but about the energy of Taurus, is that it's the only sign that can actually bore itself to death. Because it can get into that state of, I don't want things to move. So not letting any air in. So
Yeah.
it's really important. Anyone that has a really strong Taurus components in their chart, it's really important to let some air in. And with Uranus moving through Taurus, you probably don't have a lot of problem with that at the moment as well.
Yeah. But I think it's, I mean, it's really has a loveliness to the sign as well, though, because I really do feel like it is akin to Mother Nature in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it is that ability to get grounded. So it's got its stuff, but it's a fixed earth sign. It's kind of the most fixed of the fixed in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I think we've covered the Taurus ground pretty well.
Yeah. So what other aspects are made here that we might want to pay attention to?
Well, I think we've kind of
Saturn.
covered little bit of the Saturn square to it, so that brings a seriousness to it and brings a sort of a challenge to it, the same challenge that we're seeing this whole year with the Saturn Uranus square. Um, but on a nicer note, perhaps we have a sextile to Neptune and a trine to Pluto.
Yeah.
So those are some nice, more flowing energies supporting this new moon.
Yeah.
What do you think of when you think of Pluto, Lori?
Well, empowerment. With a trine, I just think that Pluto is empowering your choice of what the seed is that you're planting. And I think of a trine as just a gift.
Mm.
Whatever you intuitively feel you want to plant that seed about, once you've determined what house that new moon is in, I think the intuition of what it is going to be very easy to tap into. And I think Pluto just really empowers the ability for that seed to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I love Pluto trines. To me, are just awesome. Awesome. I love it.
Yeah. And I think that the Neptune sextile kind of brings in just the opportunity. What I've seen a lot of this year, I feel like in some of these conversations, is just the opportunity to consider the collective, consider the bigger picture, consider that your actions and your personal life have a ripple effect. They have an action in the outside world. It's not just you. It's all of us together. And I always come back to that with the Neptune and Pisces. It's just this reminder of that, and it's also this reminder that of well, I was thinking about the suffering piece, that lots of people are suffering right now, and so that sextile kind of brings in, like, just don't, just remember that there's a lot going on in the world and we're not alone, and people need our support and we need people's support. So it kind of just lends that higher arc to the whole thing.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely a higher arc to the whole thing, with the only aspects to this new moon are the outer planets.
Yeah.
I mean, Saturn's, considered a bridge planet, but there's no aspects to any of the inner planets at all. So this is, whatever that seed is you're planting, probably is best if it has a component in it that will go outward to the larger community. You might not want to plant a seed that's totally all about you and your life. It might not be as effective as if the planting of that seed has a bigger purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, though, that's great. You made me just think about, like, though it's totally worthwhile for you to be grounded, because the more grounded you are, the more it's just easier for people around you to pick up on that vibe and also be grounded and less volatile. So it's every action that you do that is truly for yourself, in the sense of, like, coming from a heart place, is going to have an impact like that. It's going to disarm crazy energy around you. It's just, so work you do in yourself is, whether you know it or not, is going to have an impact. And that's kind of the beauty of these things. You can hold an intention around it, but you also, even if you don't, the work is still kind of happening.
Right. That's awesome. So from here, just all of you take out your charts and see where Taurus falls in your chart using whole signs.
Yeah.
If you're using whole signs, then you can see whatever sign is on the cusp of each house is going to say 0, 0. If you don't have a whole sign chart, get one. If you're on Patreon, write to me if you need one. I'll send you one. And so discover where in your chart, what house it's in, and figure out what the seed is you want to plant. What
Yeah.
house is it in for you, Jenny?
For me, it's in the up there in the 11th house, and it's just this is a great time to think about, for me, just like what's happening with my community, because now we're able to get back together, a group of different friends, and actually think about just the other day doing green up day, like going out and picking up a bunch of trash, and just
That would
with
be
a couple
fun.
friends. Yeah, and it was just like so simple, but it was so nice just to have like a common focus and just chit chat with people, and it was really nice. What about you? Where's
Well, it falls in my 9th house. So I'll have to give some thought to exactly what that is. At this point, my business is moving so much more toward teaching.
nice?
So, I could spend some time this day or so around the new moon and do some work on some of my lessons. There's so many things that I can do to support the growth of what I offer my students.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I know you've been talking about having growth in the number of students you've had, and I think that's great. Like
Yeah.
that's where that is showing up. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love teaching more and more. And with Uranus moving through my 9th house, it's just so appropriate, so perfect. It's lovely. So yeah, that's how I'm playing it out. So look at your own chart, and yeah, I'll probably write a piece about each rising sign and where it
Yeah.
falls.
Well, think
But
about where you want to, have a little more reverence and tranquility in your life, and take it to a higher level, and just think about grounding that.
yeah.
So yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Okay, well, thank you, Jenny, and I hope you've all enjoyed this. Find Jenny on Hidden Path Astrology, and you can find me on Astrolore, and we're both on social media. You can find us probably in all kinds of places. On Astrolore's Patreon, you can get this video and a lot of other videos that are included there. So join us in other places, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.